Fraternity of Girth. I am rocking the new Game Over shirt right now. It's an acid wash shirt. It's instantly my favorite out of the new batch. So yes, I have my hot little hands all over the new collection, but it's not available as of the recording of this podcast, but coming soon, coming very, very soon. So if you just can't wait, if you need to get your hot little hands on some Fraternity of Girth apparel, go to fogapparel.com. They're still running sales on all the previous collections so they can make room for the new stuff. Add my code to that, code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save extra cash on it. Go to fogapparel.com. Get hooked up. New stuff coming. Back from vacation. I don't have a lot today. I'm going to be straight up honest with y'all. Came back to some pretty interesting developments in our society. I was sort of in touch and sort of keeping track of stuff when we were down at the coast. It wasn't like I was completely in the dark. But coming back, I really caught up, tried to stay in the loop with what's going on right now across the country. And in doing so, I kind of realized I don't want in any way to make the whole thing about me or try to wrap myself up in the narrative or try to make a story about me, even though inherently I'm doing that now because I'm talking on my podcast about it. But, I don't come from a place of authority. I'm not a civil rights leader. I'm not an educator. I'm not an organizer. I'm not a police officer. I'm not anything where I can speak with authority more broadly. I certainly have opinions and I have views and I can share those. And maybe that'll be helpful. Maybe that'll be a guide for some people. But what I really should do and what I can do is I can talk about some of these issues from the perspective of the Scottish Highland Games, because that's what we're doing here. That's where I belong. That's why all of you listening come to this podcast, is because we're all in this silly little sport together. And we all share this experience. So that's the place where I can speak from, if you want to call it authority or experience, because we do. We share this together. This is our shared experience. So I guess I'll just start by saying, I'm really proud of us. I'm really proud of the Highland Games. On the whole, I'm proud of the kind of people that are in this sport and who we are. I believe that the Highland Games in North America and worldwide, really, but obviously I have a lot more experience in North America, I believe is a culture of acceptance and a culture of pure enjoyment and joy. I believe that's what we are. I really do. It's not just wishful thinking. Are we perfect? Nope. We are not. Is the world of strength perfect? Does it have a untarnished history in terms of social issues like racism, prejudice, white supremacy? No, it's not perfect. It is not. Is it better now than it's ever been? I think so. I really do. I speak from a place of greater experience with the Highland Games because this is my culture. You are my people. I'm one of you. And I really, by and large, on the road, on the field, in the hotels and the restaurants and everything before and after, it's good people, man. It generally is good people. Are there people out there that hold some beliefs that I believe are out of step with the current environment, the current culture? Yes. I believe that they're just, what we are, even though I think there's some things that identify us personality and experience-wise that are more likely to show up, like our sporting experience or our lifting experience or our general personality traits. Maybe there are going to be some things in common, but we're still a slice of the American population. We're still we're a sample. we're a sample of whatever population the broader population that we're living in. So there's going to be all kinds of views. Do those people exist, though? I think there's a lot of people that, just like you'll find anywhere else, that are maybe not as up to speed on the impact of like systemic racism, the problems inherent in our system and our system of governance and our police force and our day-to-day life. And, they come from not a mean spirit or not an evil place, but a place where they just need a lot more opportunities to see those things and be exposed to them. And I think right now is a great time to do that. Sure, those people are out there. Yeah, absolutely. Are there people that are out and out, no better way to say it, racist? Are there people that participate or align themselves with white supremacist ideas? Yeah, they're out there. And look, those of you that have been doing this a long time, you've been on the field and you've been in the tent with them, and you know they're out there. You know. I know it. I know that those people exist. But do they define us? I do not believe so. And I believe it's an overwhelming minority. The overwhelming majority of people in our sport are good people. I think more than ever, the overwhelming majority of people in strength sports are good people. I think you could make the case that the world of strength has a checkered past. If you're one of these people that's been around since the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you probably have some memories and some stories about people that were A, out of step, or B, out and out malicious about their prejudices and about what kind of philosophies they align themselves with. But I mean, look, Martin Lysis just showed a picture of himself protesting. The world's strongest man. Hafthor Bjornsson participated in the Black Lives Matter Blackout Tuesday proudly. Powerlifters from across the spectrum are making it clear where they stand. Men and women, people of color, white people, everywhere across the sports are making it clear. So it's better than it's ever been in strength athletics, and I'm so proud of us. And I'm so proud of the Scottish Highland Games because, again, when you get to the Scottish Highland Games, I've talked about so many times, it's usually not people's first destination. They've usually got some mileage, and not just on their bodies, and that can be significant, but on their mind, on their spirit, if you want to call it that they've lived a little bit, they've been around, they have a wanderlust, they have a desire to travel and be around people and be in front of people, and with that comes a removal of this kind of insular quality that defines people with narrow minds. And I think you see more broad thinkers. I think you see more broad critical thinkers in our sport a lot of times. Does that mean that we're all scholars? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. We're not. But it's really hard to carry a lot of these antiquated, poisonous beliefs like white supremacist beliefs. It's hard to carry those when you're face to face with a broad selection of human beings like you are when you participate in the sport for a long time. Now, I've said time and time again that I'm proud of us, and I am. If this were one of those poisonous places with bad people, then I wouldn't be in it, and a lot of you wouldn't either. If a lot of you, if people of color or people from lots of different backgrounds that are different than mine, than the typical white male, if you had to participate in the Highland Games, but you had to tolerate prejudice, racism, abuse at every step, you just wouldn't do it, right? Because there's not any money in it. And you wouldn't do it, but a lot of you still do. And I think that speaks well of the kind of culture that we've developed. And that I think we take pride in, and that we self-police and enforce in a lot of ways. Now, I will say this, again, from the experience of being on the road and living in this culture, is that I'm proud of us, but we need to be careful. Because, unfortunately, a lot of unsavory people, a lot of people who hold outdated, outmoded, incorrect beliefs about race, they use Celtic imagery, and they use Celtic, Irish, Scottish, even Norse imagery and language and mythology and stories to justify their beliefs in white supremacy, their prejudices, their preconceived or reinforced notions. They use these things. And because of that, they can vanish their beliefs into our gatherings, into our culture. They can vanish that virulent racism into our culture, and they can hide amongst us. And I know some of you have seen it. I've talked to you about it. I know that some of you have, and I have too. It is, again, overwhelmingly the minority in our sport. But we have to be careful. The imagery, the culture, in the imagery of the culture we participate in, and all aspects of it, can be co-opted underneath our noses. It can be co-opted because I'm give it to you straight. This is a predominantly white historical culture, historically white cultural movement, because the people that it comes from come from Northwestern Europe. And those are Caucasian people, if that's the term you want to use. Those are white people. And we are celebrating Celtic, Scottish, Irish, Norse culture in some ways. And, it kind of ties in a lot of ways in, lifting and strength and stuff like that. Especially with the ascendance of, Icelandic and, Scandinavian athletes. Those things get co-opted into it, and they can be co-opted. So that's the only thing that I say all that to say again, that I'm proud of us, and we are an amazing culture of acceptance and love and fun and joy, but we have to be careful and we have to pay attention, because there are people that don't mean well that will co-opt our imagery and that will co-opt our culture. And the people that really get it, the people that really understand what the modern version of this culture, this Celtic culture, is about, understand that the Celts went through long periods of being the outcasts and being the people that were discriminated against, or the people that were pushed to the outside and pushed to the fringes. So they should, and even oppressed, and even there were attempts to exterminate Celts and Gauls. The Romans were plenty guilty of that. And, the extermination of Celts and Gauls was used as a propaganda piece by Roman leaders, by Caesar in particular. But they should understand, the people that really get this should understand that being a culture of acceptance and blending broad cultures into the Celtic ideas, into the narrative, is what it's all about, man. And that's what attracts me to it. Not the whiteness. That doesn't attract, that's not even a thought that enters my mind when I celebrate this part of my culture, this part of my heritage. And it shouldn't be anybody else's either. the joy, the celebratory nature, the togetherness, the feeling of clan, the feeling of family. That should be what it's about. And I'm going to use that as a stepping stone to talk about Sport Kilt. And this isn't going to be like a normal sponsor read. This is going to highlight for you why Sport Kilt is important and why Sport Kilt, as long as they will have me, will be a sponsor of this show. Is that Sport Kilt supports and truly understands the spirit of the Scottish Highland Games and the gatherings of the Celtic clans in which you see their apparel so often. Sport Kilt is everywhere. They're not just in festivals anymore, but that's where it started. These festival sports, these festival events, pipers, dancers, athletes, they all wear Sport Kilt. And Sport Kilt has been unflinching and steadfast in supporting everything to do with this culture for the right reasons. Sport Kilt believes in the purity and the joy of what we're doing, and they just want to outfit us for it. Plain and simple. So beyond just making good quality stuff, beyond making the stuff that I've worn my entire career, there's no hidden agenda. There's nothing going on with Sport Kilt other than they love this, they live it. James has lived this culture, has been a part of it, and he will continue to be, and he supports it emphatically. So go to sportkilt.com, use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10% on everything you get there. If you want to put your dollars towards a company that puts their energy and their dollars back into what we do for the right reasons, and they're good people, please support Sport Kilt. One last thing. On the Throwbros Instagram account, I posted a picture of our sponsored athlete, Jarvina Rout, her throwing, and I put only the caption Black Excellence. And that is, as I said to someone I was having a conversation with about it, about the response to it, that says everything we want to say as a company right there. I'll let everyone else figure out all the ins and outs and all the details and all the things that implies, but that's everything we want to say. Now, I'll say something more here. That the response to that, one particular response, a couple responses, let's say, by people who I know some of you look up to in this community as athletes or as coaches, that the general idea behind that was, and I think probably came from an honest place and a good place, was this general sentiment that you'll see a lot of times reflected in these conversations that why can't it just be excellence? Color doesn't matter. And I think in their heart, I think that comes from a good place in their heart, but it's tone deaf. And it's not the correct way to look. It doesn't take into account the context. It doesn't take into account all the context. You cannot sit in a place where you say you're able to view things post-racially and that you're able to sit above the fray and just appreciate excellence or appreciate intelligence, appreciate accomplishment, regardless of color. That is a great goal. And that was Dr. King's goal. But you cannot sit in the place where, let's say, the people in this conversation did, culturally, as white men, and say that you ignore color and that the appreciation of black excellence is too narrow. Because the problem is we're not starting from a place of equity. If we were starting from a place of equity and I decided to then recognize black excellence, okay, you might have a case. You might have a case, why do I need to narrow the field? But the problem is we've narrowed the field in the other direction for so long that it's important to recognize black excellence. Because for too long, black excellence has not been appreciated. Often it has been squashed It has been condemned and it has been ignored. So with Throw Bros, my company, Aaron's company, recognizing black excellence, we're saying it's time right now to reverse the trend. That's all we can do in our sport with our athlete. That's all we can do with someone who represents our sport, our culture, and she represents her culture, her ethnicity, wonderfully and powerfully and excellently. That's what we can do. That's the only thing that my dumb ass can think to do, because I don't have a lot of other tools at my disposal, but I do have the platform in our sport, and I will use it. So I know that sentiment of why does it have to be black excellence? I know where that comes from, and I know it's not an inherently evil place, but it's a systemically poisoned place that it comes from. The well is poisoned that you're drawing that sentiment from, and you have to recognize that, and you have to recognize that our recognition of black excellence is a way of stemming that tide and showing that black excellence deserves to be recognized and not punished and not ignored. Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.